Hello everyone, how's it going? Dr. Incompetent here, and let's play some Planet Zoo, shall we? Here, at the end of February in 2023 with version 1.12 of Planet Zoo Live, and I'm going to do a complete beginner's guide for franchise mode, okay? So franchise mode is my favorite mode of playing Planet Zoo simply because it makes it more of a game where you need to earn your upgrades and do research, and you get rewarded for having a good zoo and you build up progress. I enjoy that. Of course, Sandbox is fantastic if you want to just build without worrying about money and use whatever animals. But in franchise mode, you kind of start small and you build up your zoo and you maintain it, and it starts to grow and sprawl, and it's just a very satisfying experience. But it's also a game mode that can be quite challenging for players to earn conservation credits for staying, financially stable and create a zoo that is engaging and fun, but understanding how to live within a budget and what you need and what you don't need. So in this guide, what I'm going to do is fire up a brand new franchise, and I'm just going to start a brand new zoo with you, and you can play along or watch along if you're wanting to learn the basics, or if you're interested in seeing if this game might be for you and you want to buy it. Now, what I'm going to do with that is just talk through my thought process of why I'm doing what I'm doing and explaining the fundamentals of the game so you can enjoy it more. I am not going to give you just one specific path that you have to take and how to maximize the most amount of money and points in the shortest amount of time, because there's plenty of guides that would do that. But this one is just how I enjoy playing the game, which is to kind of luxuriously experience all of the fun detail in the game and to learn enough about how to play the game so that you can enjoy it at whatever pace or in whatever style you want, okay? So we're going to go to franchise mode, and we're going to create a new franchise, and it says, welcome to your franchise. What would you like to call it? And we're going to call it Incomp Tutorial. How's that? Okay. So Incomp Tutorial, I'm ready. Okay. Now, we're making a brand new franchise, and we get 100 conservation credits, okay? So you name your franchise, and you get these conservation credits. Now, when you start out, okay, you are not going to get very many conservation credits because this is something that you get as rewards for daily logins and consistency playing the game, but also something that you can gain through donating your animals. Well, donating might not be the right word. How about releasing your animals into the wild, okay? So these come very slow at first, but eventually will build up to be making much more of these, but they're quite precious when you begin the game, and we'll talk about that. So we'll claim it, and now you can see we're starting out. We've got 300 conservation credits, but we need to use 100 of those to start a new zoo. Now, if you're in franchise mode, you can have many zoos, and you share the research and the animals and the credits between them. The only thing that you don't share between your zoos is the money that you make at the zoo, okay? So I like to do this because, you can have one zoo that you build up, you do okay with it, and then you can start fresh. But when you build your next zoo, it's kind of like an RPG where you've got all these unlocks that you've triggered, and you'll have more materials that you can build, more options when you're building. You'll have animals you could trade between the zoos, you'll have conservation credits stocked up, and you'll have a lot of research done. So it just gets you ahead with the subsequent zoos that you build. But for now, we're just going to build a brand new zoo. Now, when you build a zoo, you need to select a biome, okay? So this is like what kind of climate, temperature, and environment that you're in. So do you want to be in the desert, the grasslands, tropical, temperate, taiga, or tundra, okay? And I am feeling okay and saying, all right, where do we want to be? Well, you have to think, what kind of animals do you want? What kind of animals do you want to see? It's going to be easier for those kinds of animals to live in the biome that your zoo is in. However, given enough technology, you can have pretty much any animal in your zoo if you heat it, cool it, or insulate it otherwise. But you also have to think about the guests that are coming to your zoo. And if they're walking around and you're in the tundra, well, you're going to need to maybe make it warm for them. Or if you're in the desert, you're going to need to provide a lot of drinks and cool it down for them. So I'm going to go somewhere in the middle, and I'm just going to select a temperate climate. Now, if you select temperate biome, you get to choose between continents Asia, Europe, and North America. And I'm going to do Europe. If you check, I've done Let's Plays for this game with 2 zoos in franchise mode, and the playlist will be linked below. I've done Asia, and I've done Africa, I believe, but I've never done Europe, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and start in Europe. And now, once we've selected our biome and our continent, we need to select our difficulty, and this is like how hard the game will be. So franchise mode, you got to make money, you got to pay your staff, you got to deal with all of these ins and outs that sandbox mode doesn't necessarily have as limitations. I'm going to go with medium difficulty. I think it's fine. Even if you're a new player, even if you're a complete beginner, I think medium is fine. And I'm going to start it here just because I want to show you some best practices and give you a realistic look at medium. But if you're just saying to yourself, you know what, I want to just start on easy mode instead, go for it. Do whatever you want, okay? I don't necessarily recommend starting on hard unless you really, really want a challenge. But as you'll see, it is possible to box yourself in and spend too much money and make this a real struggle if you aren't wise with your cash and your conservation credits. Terrain type, okay? Do you want to be flat, sculpted, or any of these other options? I'm going to go on a nice flat terrain. I'm just going to go with the default flat terrain, okay? Now you can click to refresh your list if you want. You can change it. You can upload, I think you can actually download different terrain types. I'm fine with flat, and we're just going to name it, okay? Our first zoo, okay? And I'm going to create it with this red button at the bottom, and it's going to spend 100 of our 300 conservation credits. And go. And now it's loading it up. The turtle is moving. Okay, so here we are. And we are at our brand new zoo. Okay? Now you'll notice something immediately, which is, well, there is nothing here, right? And as I look at this, it's a wide open flat space with some beautiful rolling hills. Now let's talk immediately about the controls. But first I'm going to pause the game by clicking the icon in the bottom right corner that looks like a play button. You can also push P to unpause the game, okay? Or pause it again with P. Okay, so let's talk about the controls. If you want to move around the camera, you can use W, A, S, and D to move it forward, left, down, and right. And you can use Q and E to move the camera up and down, okay? So those are keyboard commands you can use just for kind of moving the camera around. Now, if you want, you can also hold the right mouse button and drag to move your camera around, okay? And you can click in the middle mouse wheel to rotate your camera, okay? So you click the middle mouse wheel, you hold it down, and you can rotate your camera around. And you can zoom in and out, okay, using the mouse wheel. You can also move the camera around it using the directional arrows, okay? Okay, so that explains the camera itself. Now, let's talk about the UI and what we see. And I'm just going to zoom in our camera and roll it slowly back so we can see on the screen in the center is, of course, the zoo. And in the main window, we can see everything that we've built so far, which is nothing. The only thing that we have right now would be our welcome center, which is the entry point to our zoo. So if I look closely at this, you'll see that we've got some beautiful topiary cut up with some animals, and through these gates the guests will come and go. So this is where the guests come in, and this is where they leave from, and everything needs to build from this path that is starting here at our entry point. Now, this game does have a tutorial built in, and I played a good bit of it in career mode, and I recommend doing that to learn the controls, but I found it to not be as helpful as just diving in and playing myself. And I want to just add to that by showing you the ropes playing the game, but I'm also going to need to explain to you the controls so that everything feels good and familiar and you know how to do everything. So, continuing to explain what we see on the screen, in the upper left, you're going to see some buttons dropping down. And these are major buttons or indicators that we can get to. The question mark is the help. The little notebook with the paw pad is our Zoopedia. This is extremely helpful for giving you all kinds of information about animals that you have and what they like and what they need. We've got our notification timeline, like our calendar. This button with the trophy is the challenge button, and you can see it has a badge already on it that's green. And if you click on this, it gives you small mini quests or challenges to do within your zoo. So right now, for example, it says adopt habitat species. And if we adopt 2 different habitat species, we will get $1,000. Okay, so $1,000 is a lot at the beginning of the game. How much money do we have? Well, you can look in the bottom left and see on this ribbon that runs across the bottom of the screen, we have $40,000 to start our zoo. Okay, we have 200 conservation credits and $40,000, so $1,000 would be great. So we definitely want to place 2 different habitat species to get this reward. And a lot of these challenges are something that we would do anyway, but they're wonderful incentives to just give you a little bit of something like, oh, I should go do this. Now, these are your individual challenges. Here, there are community challenges. These will change based on what time of year you're playing, what day it is, and, you know, the Frontier, the company that produces this game, they update these and provide new challenges for the community, and you can log in and just get a whole bunch of free conservation credits, which is fantastic, from community challenges. So always check these tabs, and if you have anything that you've received, if you've earned a challenge or a community challenge, just click on, you know, the badge will appear and you can click on the challenge button to get it. Okay, now this eyeball right here means inspection. And this would be like if we're getting inspected by someone who is coming to look at our zoo. And in franchise mode, this does indeed happen. And you want to get a good rating while you're being inspected to make sure that your zoo doesn't get closed down or any kind of violations or penalties. And what will happen is periodically the game will warn you, an inspector will come to the zoo, and they will just make sure that your animals are happy and that they're safe and that everything is up to code in your zoo. Now, this bottom button here, where it says staff alerts, okay, this button is telling you everything that you need to know, notification style, about your staff. Now, right now, we have no staff. It's just us. But what they're telling us is that we need a trade center, a workshop, a quarantine, a staff room, a research center, a keeper hut, and vet surgery. They're saying, hey, you not only do you not have any staff, you don't have the basic infrastructure and buildings that you need to run a zoo. So the great thing about starting off right away in franchise mode is they tell you with the red alerts from the staff, like, you got to do these things to get a zoo up and running. And then the challenges are kind of like some soft goals that you can do to get extra money, because our money is going to go down quite rapidly. Now, in the help menu, I will click on this, and this is fantastic because it's searchable. So you can just type in here for something that you're looking for, or you can go through these different categories about anything that you want more information on. There's also a very good wiki, and the Reddit community is very strong for this game as well. If you Google anything for Planet Zoo, you should be able to get an answer about something specifically, but my hope is with this guide that you won't need to use this too much when you're starting out. Now, the Zoopedia, if I go into it, this is going to give you all sorts of information about different animals that you can acquire. So, for example, we've got aardvarks as the first entry. It's alphabetical, and it brings up an amazing picture of an aardvark and what it would look like in the game in your zoo. There's some kind of like, entry, encyclopedic entry over here for you to get overview information. And then if you look in the upper center of the Zoopedia, there are these buttons that show you, okay, that we're on general information, but you can check out the habitat information to see like where they live. And this is absolutely vital, and we'll come back to this more, but this is the screen you want to look at to find out what your animal needs to thrive in your zoo. So you can see what biomes it likes. You can see, does it need to be able to have, how much space does it need? Does it need to be able to climb? Does it need to swim? What temperature does it want? What kind of barrier will keep it in? Then you can check the species data, which is also extremely important, which is like, how many of this animal can you have? How many males do you need to females? Like, what kind of ratio are you looking for? Then there is research status, which is like, what have you unlocked through research? Now, I have reset everything in my own personal franchise mode. I deleted it so that I could start at ground zero with you. No advantages, nothing. I have nothing researched. But as you do research, you will become more familiar with the animal and be able to take care of it better, provide for its needs more specifically, and it's just a really fun element of the game. Interspecies enrichment would be like, do you want to put this animal in a habitat with another animal and that they work and thrive together? Okay. And then world records would be like, what's the biggest one, that anyone's ever had, for this species. So I'm going to close this for now. And okay, we are pretty good with our information. The timeline, the calendar, we don't have anything going on right now, so we will just close that up. But let's look at the bottom ribbon, okay? So in the bottom ribbon, you're going to see that, like I said, it shows our money, it shows our conservation credits, okay? It shows how many guests we currently have at the zoo, which is 0. It shows what is our reputation level, and it shows how happy are our guests, okay? Over here on the right, it shows what the temperature is, and I have mine in Fahrenheit. You can adjust that. It shows the date and the time of day, and it has the buttons for slowing, pausing, or speeding up the game. And then on the top, there are buttons for the zoo, and if I click zoo, it gives me all sorts of information about my zoo, like how much money we're making, our staff, and we'll look at these things later. We don't need it at the moment. Animal trading, we don't have an animal trading center to even trade animals at the moment, and exhibit trading, we also don't have a trade center for that either. Then in the middle, you're going to see all of the building icons. So we can build barriers. We get information on building habitats. Nature would be like planting natural elements like trees and flowers and things like that. Facilities are staff rooms, bathrooms, restaurants. Construction is like a full-on separate mode where you are not using necessarily prefab stuff. You're building from scratch. And then blueprints would be you're downloading stuff online to use existing blueprints to make awesome structures. Paths is how we build the paths, and this is how all of our guests will get around the zoo, and our staff. They're absolutely essential. And terrain is how we raise, lower, and sculpt the terrain. We also have a bulldoze mode, and we have multi-selection if we want to drag a big box and select a whole bunch of things to adjust. So, some final things I want to tell you about the ribbon. Down here, there's undo. So you can do something, and if you don't like it, you can just click undo or Control Z, okay? And then redo, you can click the button or Control Y. There's also different camera effects if you want to make the game look different, and then there's different camera modes that you can alternate between. Finally, in the bottom left, there are heat maps. And so if I mouse over this, okay, it says heat maps, and you can get to this by pushing H or clicking on this. And this will make the screen look white, and you'll be like, oh my goodness, what's going on? If this ever happens to you, just push H to turn it on or off. This is what shows you very, very useful information in a variety of categories about your zoo. So right now, it defaults to the Animal Welfare tab, and this just allows you to see at a glance which animals are happy and sad. Now, we have no animals. Okay, you can see habitat information, you can see the temperature, how hot or cold it is in certain places, you can see where water is and what counts as water, you can see where power is, and for us that's actually important because right now the only power that we're generating is from our entrance point right here, and this blue circle represents the area of influence of our power, which means anything that we build within this blue circle gets power, and anything that's not in there is not getting power currently. This is information about buildings. Negative impact on guests would be like things that people do not want to see. Maintenance buildings, trash, and you can just find where we need to adjust that. Security and crime, how much education guests are getting about the animals, guest needs and what makes them happy and unhappy, and then staff as well. Okay, so you can see like with guest needs, for example, you could just look at all your guests specifically and say like the green ones are happy, the red ones are unhappy, and the same thing with your staff. Now, I'm doing a very quick overview of this information because we're going to look at it in more detail in a bit, but this is very important for us to know as we start. One more thing would be that if you mouse over any information, like the conservation credits, you see how it pops up this window and it tells you, here's how you earn conservation credits. Or if I mouse over my finance, I can click on it and it opens up the finance window. So there's all sorts of great built-in information in the game about how to do things either with the help, the Zoopedia, or mousing over and clicking on it, okay? So now let's get into actually building our zoo, okay? So the first thing we need is we need a path so that people can walk around. In Planet Zoo, guests can only move on the path, okay? So you have to think about the fact that your guests will only be able to walk on the path, so they can't go anywhere if there isn't a path. So the first thing we want to do is open the path menu, okay? So we're going to click on the path button in the lower right of the screen, all right? And when we do this, okay, our mouse will turn into either a circle with a path on it that's surrounded by blue, or if I move my mouse close to the entry point, you'll see that it immediately snaps, okay? And it's snapping to the path that I have coming in. And this will let us build a path that moves in whatever direction we want, okay, coming out of the starting point so that guests can enter our zoo. Now, when I'm building a path, right now you have different options. You can build a queue, which is like a line for people who want to wait in when you're building a ride or a train, some kind of transportation. You need to build a queue for them to wait in, and then there are staff paths, which are paths that only your staff can walk on. But the default is a regular path, which staff and guests can both walk on. Now, all of these paths that we can see at the top right here, actually all of them that we can see are $1 per meter. So because of that, choose whichever path you like. All of these different paths, the graphic for them, how they appear, like dark asphalt or light asphalt or, you know, round logs, whatever you want, beach board, these are purely cosmetic. So you can just build whichever ones you want, and you can easily paint over them and replace if you don't like your style. Okay, so I'm going to go with this herringbone brick path. Okay, now you can also, as you see, if I move my mouse inside my entry point, like if I want to match everything, I can even make all of this path that I can see herringbone if I really want to. Okay, but I'm going to click right here once. All right, and then that starts the path. Okay, so I click and I've snapped it, and now I've started the path, and you can see that as I move my mouse around, it's saying like, hey, where do you want to move this path? Now, if I move my mouse too far away, it will unsnap and start a new one. But if I get close, it's saying, what do you want to do? Now, from this point, okay, you can adjust the width of your path that you're building using the square brackets, okay? You can make it larger or smaller. You can also do that by coming down to the path on the right panel and changing its width, okay? Now, you can also use the plus and minus button to adjust its length. So I can make it longer by using plus. I can take it back using minus, okay? It has a minimum length. And you get to choose how wide or narrow you want your path, okay? Now, right now, as I'm building this, okay, I want my path to be large, and I'm going to just kind of make it 23 feet, which matches the entrance path, but you don't have to make it this wide if you don't want it. The reason I want this path to be wide, I'm going to click it, and I'm going to just, for the moment, leave it here. The reason I want my path to be wide is because you have to think about the fact that this is the entry and exit point for the zoo. So that means that all the guests that are coming in, they are going to come in on one side and leave on the other. So I want to have plenty of space for people to walk back and forth without bumping into each other. And this is also the main artery in our zoo. So I want it to be a pretty substantial path in terms of its width. And it's not costing me that much money to build this, right? You can see that I've spent about $27 so far on this path. So it's pretty reasonable. Okay. So now I'm going to click on path again, and I'm going to continue this process. Now, if you want, okay, you can change the way that your path snaps, and you can align it to a grid, or you can not. I am not doing that right now. You can turn on angle snap if you want, okay? And angle snap at 90 degrees, you can see how if I click angle snap, I cannot move it around freely. All I can do is make it turn at 90 degrees. You can change this. You can be like, hey, I want 45 degrees, and then you can go in different increments, okay, of 45 degrees around. Or you can turn it off and just have freestyle pathing. It is up to you if you want complete flexibility or you want things to be more rigorously defined, okay? So if you want to get everything straight, go ahead. Just build it like that. All right, and I'm going to build the path going straight in to this point, and I'm happy with that, okay? So now I'm going to zoom way out, and you can see that all I've got is a nice path that comes right into our zoo, okay? So that's a good amount of pathing for me at the moment, and now we need to start addressing the needs of our zoo itself, okay? So what are we going to do here? How do we make this happen? We need to begin building trade centers, workshops, quarantines, staff rooms, research center, all of the things that the infrastructure for our staff require, okay? And I'm going to go to path, and I'm going to just show you how to do this also. I'm going to finish up, and I'm going to path in the inside, okay? It's a little bit wonky. You go into the building this way, but I'm just continuing to click so that, and I can't build anymore. There we go. So that at least from the top down, it looks like my path is homogeneous and it's all this herringbone pattern. Okay. Now, I'm going to start making staff buildings. Okay. I'm going to go into facilities. All right. And this is the facilities button. Okay. Now, from the facilities button, it currently brings up all of the options that I can possibly build with the level of research that I have. As you research more in the game, you will be able to build more and more things. But you get a lot of different items, buildings, structures that you can create right out of the gate here in Planet Zoo. I'm going to move, from the facilities button that's in green because I've clicked on it. You see we have the facilities window open. I'm going to move over to the left. And on the left, I've got all these different buttons I can push to sort these. And I only want staff facilities. So the staff always looks like a guy or gal wearing a hat with this kind of like a uniform on. And if you click on this, now all of these buildings are staff buildings. So you can see we've got a trade center, a keeper hut, and we've even got some more decorated versions of these. When you're starting out, we only have the option of building the completely generic structures that look like, they're just poured concrete and drywall, nothing else. And they're the cheapest that we can get. And this is what we want to build. The Planet Zoo style buildings look better, but they are more expensive, and I want to save my money starting my franchise mode, so I'm going to build these more basic structures first, Even though these look nicer, they don't actually interact with your zoo differently, They just look nicer for you as a player, but they don't affect your staff or your guests. So understand that the monetary difference is purely cosmetic for your zoo itself. So what buildings do we need? I'm going to click on the staff alerts, and we're going to see we need a trade center, a workshop, a quarantine, a staff room, a research center, a keeper hut, and a vet surgery. This is what the game is telling us that we need, Now, these are expensive buildings, And I'm going to tell you that you can actually get away without building some of these at first if you want to save money. But the reason I kind of recommend building all of these is just so that you don't accidentally spend the money so that you can't afford it when you need it, But what you have to have, starting out would be a trade center, a workshop, a staff room, a research center, and a keeper hut. You can get away without quarantine and vet surgery at the beginning because you shouldn't have any problems with your animals just like right out of the gate, but maybe you will. So we're going to build all of these, So first we're going to build an animal trade center. I'm going to click on Animal Trade Center. Now, by clicking on Animal Trade Center, I'm going to close the staff alert button, You'll see that it now brings up a building, this prefab structure, that has the Animal Trade Center icon on the top of it, And it is also surrounded by a grid, Now, when I'm building, I can use my camera controls. I can also rotate this building, So I'm using the camera, and I can use my mouse to kind of move it around, and I can rotate it with the Z key, and push it however many times I want to rotate it 90 degrees, And you can see that if I actually aim this building at the path automatically extends to connect to the front door of this building. Now, I don't want to do that, though, and I'm going to tell you why. Staff buildings negatively impact guests. They do not like seeing the staff buildings. They don't like being close to them. They have an area of influence which is negative, So, for example, if I wanted to see that, I could push H, and I can change my heat map to negative impact on guests. And check this out. This red circle all the way around this building is showing you how big the negative area of influence is for this structure. So what that means is if any guest were to walk through this red circle, okay, like so if I built it here, they would pass through this and it would just cause them to be unhappy. So we don't want any guests to ever experience this, even a little bit. So you're going to have to remember to push H to open up this heat map. By the way, it'll just default to whatever last tab that you had selected. So when you're building, you can always just push H to kind of bring that up to remind yourself. So now that we know, okay, that the staff buildings create a negative experience for the guests, we need to put the staff structures away from where the guests are going to come in. So I'm going to build a path. Now I can go down to the bottom and click the path button, or I could push the number 9 key on the keyboard to open up paths. If you want, there are keyboard commands for a lot of the basic options, and the number keys 1 through 9, actually 1 through 0 if you include terrain, correspond to the buttons at the top of the ribbon at the bottom of the screen. So 1 is zoo, for example, okay? And if I go back to 9, I've got paths. So I want to build a path that goes over here, but I do not want my guests to use this path. So I'm going to make a staff path, okay? And I'm going to have a staff path come off right at the beginning of the zoo here to kind of sneak over to a little facility that I'm going to build where the staff stuff can go, tucked out of sight from the guests. Now, this path, I do not want to be 23 feet wide, okay? I also don't want to angle snap it, so I'm going to push the spacebar to cancel angle snap. You can also just click on this, and I'm going to use the angle brackets to make this a much smaller path, okay? I'm going to make it the most narrow path that we can, 13 feet, and I'm sorry, the square brackets to do that. And you can also just use this slider where it says width on the right panel to do that. And I'm going to, right here, at the start of when people can come in. No, I take that back. Let me get a little bit more space. Let me do it right here. How about that? I'm going to start building a staff path. And I'm going to just push the plus key to make this a really, really long path, okay? And I am going to angle this one so that it's nice and straight. And I'm going to zoom out, and I'm going to, this is as long as I can make it, okay? And if I build this right here, okay? It costs just a little bit of money, and I'm going to build this all the way over here. And that's good enough. And so I'm just going to push 9 to stop building a path. And now what we have is a path for our guests to come in on and a staff path coming over to the side right at the front of the zoo for us. Now, something else I want to show you is that I built this, right? It looks great. However, the problem is there's all these trees that are in the way. This is something amazing about Planet Zoo. One of my favorite things about it. If I just click on a tree, this beech tree, right? I get information about it. It says, this is a beech tree. These are the biomes that it goes in, okay, which will become important later. It basically means that if you put this in a habitat for an animal, they want plants and that are from their biome in their habitat. Otherwise, it doesn't feel natural to them. So you need to pay attention to the biome for the tree. You can rename this tree, right? I can be like, you know, my first tree, if I want to remember this for whatever reason up here, okay? And now it's called my first tree. I can center the camera on this tree, all right? It tells you the coverage that this tree is providing from its size. But what I want to show you, more importantly, is that you have options down at the bottom right of this window. You can move it with the M key. You can rotate it with the X key. We'll talk about advanced rotate. You can duplicate it if you want to build another one, but it will cost money. And you can duplicate and move, or you can just delete it. I don't want to kill my tree. It's a tree that I got for free. It started with me. I'm going to just instead push M. And now I pick it up. I have picked up a tree. Look how powerful I am. And I can put this tree wherever I want. The reason I'm moving this tree is because I want to build some structures and I don't want it to get in the way. So what I'm going to actually do is move this tree to right there. And I'm going to just kind of moving it around with my mouse, and I'm just going to left click it. And now I have a tree that lives there. And I'm going to click on this tree, and I'm going to push M, and I'm going to move this tree as well, okay? And I'm going to put it right here, okay? So now, look at what we've got. We've got these magisterial beech trees. I'm going to click on this tree, M, to pick it up, and I'm going to just left click it, okay, over here. And now I have space to build staff buildings. I'm going to take this tree and I'm going to put it over here. But what I've done is provided a beautiful entryway for my guests. So I'm going to push escape to cancel selecting that, and provided, at least in my mind, a shelter so that the guests don't see these buildings. Now, really, this doesn't block their view, these trees, but it just looks good. Now, that being said, if you say to yourself, I don't like this, I don't like these trees, okay? They're blocking the view of my entry. You can just push M, and you can instead just kind of put them off to the side. And you can just go ahead, grab all these trees, and make a nice little forest over here. And I'm actually going to keep them over here so that you can see what I'm doing better. But at the same time, that is the beauty of the game. You can pick up and move natural things, and you can plant trees, flowers, whatever you like. And right now it might be cost prohibitive, but really it's not that expensive once you get into it. Okay, so let's now return to building, all right? And I'm going to push the 6 key on the keyboard to go back to the facilities. And I'm going to go, I'm still selected on staff facilities. Remember, it remembers where your cursor was last, what you'd selected last, and we're going to build that animal trading center. I'm going to push H to show our heat map, and I'm going to demonstrate to you that I can build this, okay, in such a way that it does not negatively impact my guests if I build it right here. Now, I could even build it closer, but I don't want to take any chances. I'm going to build this facility right there. Okay, so I left-clicked it. Now, this can get complicated because when you're building in this way, it starts to create a grid and a group. And once you select a building, it's going to go into this group building mode. It's like editing group 4, and it has this yellow border. I'm just going to click exit. I don't want that. I just want one little building right there. Grouping is great if you want to build a whole bunch of buildings and connect them and then move them around later, but I don't generally play that way. So I'm going to just build it right there by itself, okay? And I'm going to push escape to cancel the heat map and escape to cancel building. And now you can see that the trade center is here. The reason I'm not just building it like a million miles away from my entry point and trying to get it as close as possible without negatively impacting the staff is that remember that your staff have to walk. So you have to always be thinking about your staff and your guests. If you make them walk a lot, they're going to get tired. They're going to complain. They're going to be unhappy, and it's going to take them longer for your staff to do things because they have to cover a great distance. So you want to make it convenient for your staff to get places so that it expedites the process of them doing their work. All right, so now we have an animal trade center, and we need to build a keeper hut, but I'm not going to build my keeper hut over here. We'll talk about that in a moment. I'm going to instead go and say, what else do we need? We need a workshop, quarantine, staff room, sure. So let's just move over and let's build ourselves a research center right next door. And I can push H just to double check, okay, about my negative influence, but we're good to go. And you see that my building is rotated toward the staff path that I built. If I push Z to keep rotating it, it's no longer connected. You need to have a connection to the path for your staff to be able to access it. So let me push H to cancel the heat map and zoom in on this. You see how if I move this, we can connect it to the path as long as there is a path that's going up to the front door, okay, of your structure, you are good. Your staff can get there. But if I push Z, Now no staff can get here. They won't be able to use this building. So make sure you have it connected to your path by facing it, okay? I like to build my path first and then my buildings and have them connect to it. But you can build your buildings and try to path as well. It is up to you, all right? So now we have a research center. Let's go over here and let's build a small staff room, okay? And I'm just kind of building it here. Now, in this case, I would be building as a group. I'm going to push escape. I don't want a group. And I'm going to build a staff room by itself. I'm going to push H just to double check. Yep, no problem here. Okay. Usually these buildings have the same animosity from the guests as others. So as long as you use this trading center as your kind of like rightmost barrier here, you should be good to go. All right, we'll build a workshop. Now, I am going to build this one as part of the group because it's fine. And I want to show you that you can do it. It just makes things a little bit wonkier sometimes later, but you can always take things out of a group. All right, so I'm going to build this here. Okay, so now we have that. And at this point, we've built just about everything that we need. But I am going to spend the cash and build a vet surgery. Okay, I'm going to just make sure that we're good. The vet surgery is a bigger building, so it has a bigger area of influence and animosity. And I'm also going to build a quarantine. Okay, so what I've done here is I've built all of the staff buildings besides the keeper hut. And I'm going to push escape to get out of build mode and out of group mode. I'm going to close the group. You can name the group if you want or edit it further. I'm not going to talk about that too much at the moment. But here we go. We've got a lineup. These buildings are not pretty. You have to deal with the fact that in the beginning of franchise mode in Planet Zoo, your buildings are not going to look great for your staff. But later, when you unlock things, you can simply drop cosmetic shells on top of these rough exteriors and make them look great. You can also demolish them and rebuild them as needed. Okay. So now we have some staff buildings. But I didn't build a keeper hut. I didn't build my keeper hut for this reason. You usually want to have your keeper hut as close to the habitat that keeper is going to be working at so they can easily get out and help feed your animals and clean the habitat. So you want that keeper hut to go close to your initial habitat. And we're going to build our initial habitat right here in this central point. My idea is we're going to have the guests come in and we're going to have all of them see the first habitat that we build so that we can really, really radiate out from this point and use it to maximize the amount of exposure and money that we get early on in the game. Okay? So we've built our staff area. Now it's time to actually build a place for our animals to live. So once we've built all the staff buildings and have built the trading center, we can now get ready to put some animals in our zoo. Now, I'm only going to build one type of animal right now because what we want to do is build a centralized habitat that we can completely take care of, get the guests seeing, and allow us to start making some money. You don't want to build too many habitats right at the beginning because it's going to be too much to maintain. You want to just see if you can get one off the ground, learn how to do the barriers, learn how to place the gate, how to get a keeper in there, how to maintain it, and everything about the animals before you start building more habitats right off of the starting point, unless you've played before. So what we're going to do is click the Animal Trading tab, which is now open as we have a trading center, and you can click it or you can push 2 on the keyboard and bring it up. Now, when this screen comes up, you're going to see the animal market, okay? And it defaults to the animal market where you can purchase animals. Now, you're either going to be purchasing them from the Planet Zoo kind of AI marketplace, or other players can sell you their own animals. Now, I've already done this, but I want to show you. I've gone to the price tab over on the right of this screen, and I've selected the filter option by clicking on the filter cone. And I am looking at only cash listings, okay? If I want to do this and you want to do this because we don't have enough conservation credits to really buy a pair of animals right now, and we want a pair. We want a male and a female. I'm going to click on cash listings. Okay. And now I want to just only look at cash listings, and I've selected a maximum of $2,000 because we don't have that much money left over. I'm going to click confirm, and it's going to resort to list. Now, when you look at this screen, it's currently sorting the species alphabetically, but let's take a look at what we can see. We see a picture of the animal, and the top is the species name, and the bottom is the name that the game has given the animal, the personal name that you can change at your leisure if you like. Then you're going to see the gender, a male and female, blue and pink. We want to get one male and one female at least, okay, to start out, depending on what the species would like. The next column is the age tab, and what you're really looking for are adults that are in this green lifespan here, okay? So the lifespans will differ based on the animals, but you want to get an adult that is not going to die soon and is not a juvenile because you want it to be able to procreate. The next tab is appeal. Now, this is very important because the higher the number, the more your guest will enjoy seeing it and will pay higher ticket prices and will have better satisfaction when coming to your zoo. Next, you'll see the auction time, which is how many real-time minutes this animal will be for sale. And then finally, the price tab, which we have discussed before. Now, you can get whatever animals you would like for your zoo, okay? You can look through here, try to get something with good appeal, and try to get yourself a male and a female. Now, look at this aardvark. If you click on an animal, okay, it opens up a screen over here, or I suppose it just puts more information on a right panel on the existing animal market screen. And this gives you all kinds of good information here about its genetics and breeding. And these indicators here, you want them to try to be as high as you can get them, okay? But some categories are more important than others. Size is not super important, but the ones you want to look out for are longevity, fertility, and immunity, particularly fertility and immunity, okay? Fertility you have to have if you want to have babies. Immunity is good so that your animal doesn't come into the zoo sick or get sick. And then longevity just means it's not going to die. It's going to probably live a good lifespan, okay? Now, because we're buying with cash, this means that we cannot release these back into the wild for conservation credits. But if they have babies, those can be released for conservation credits, which is what we want to do. But not immediately, because babies are so good. They have a huge appeal rating. People love to come and see babies. So we're going to keep babies, but once they grow, we might decide to either send them off into the wild or keep them. It just depends on our situation. Now, once you feel like you find, okay, some good ones, and at the beginning you can't really choose to be too picky all the time, you can snap them up. But before you decide to purchase them, okay, what you want to do is click on the Zoopedia tab over here, and it will open up the entry for that animal. And you can see a picture. Here's the aardvark. Now, there are some buttons up here that give you new information on different tabs, and you want to first go to the Natural Habitat tab and see if it'll work in your zoo. We've got tropical grassland biomes is what it likes to live in, and we can accommodate that, okay? Now, we're going to get 2 animals. So over here where it says minimum habitat requirements, we're going to change this number to 2 adults and look at the information resulting to see what we would need for a habitat. We would need almost 4,200 square feet for these aardvarks to live. They don't need any climbing requirements. They don't need water. They don't need deep water. This is the temperature range that they want to live in, which we're already in right now and is fine. And a grade 2 barrier is something that's very easy for us to build with our current technology, and they can't climb, so that's going to make it even more desirable. You need to have animals that you can properly contain with your level of research, so you want to get a very simple animal at the beginning. Now, the next thing you want to consider is its species data. So we're going to click on this next tab, and this tells you how big of a group of this type of animal that you want to get. So aardvarks are actually, it says right here, okay, only 1 to 2 in the group, 1 male and 1 female. Now, that does not count children. That counts only adults, okay? So it means we're only going to be able to recruit 2 of these at max, 1 male and 1 female, to live together, and then they can have babies. But once those babies mature, we're going to need to decide what to do with the surplus adult aardvarks, because they will not live happily together. They don't have a dominant system, which is good. They have a polygynous mating system, and relation to humans shy means that they don't like to see humans, okay? So we might need to provide them with cover that they can hide behind, and that's something to consider. Guests can enter habitat. Now, this is a little bit misleading. It says yes, okay? So we could actually have people go walk into the habitat to get a closer look at the aardvarks, but it's a little bit tricky because they're shy. So, you know, you kind of want to take that with a grain of salt. So, once we look at this and decide we might want to get aardvarks because we can accommodate them, we know how many we want, we understand their habitat requirements, okay? We can go back to the market and say, do we want to purchase any of these right away? Now, there's an albino one that's 10,000 conservation credits. That's ridiculous. We're not going to get that. But the ones for cash, we can get. So I'm going to buy, okay? There's only 1 male that's actually left, and it's this one. So I'm going to go ahead and adopt it. And we can choose between different females. And this one right here is big and has reasonable fertility. And so we'll take her. Now, these are not perfect animals, but we got them. And it's a good place for us to start. Now, that being said, start anywhere you like. It's Planet Zoo. Have some fun. You can start with birds. You can start with wolves. You can start with any animal that you think you can take. But some animals are harder than others. If you have any of the DLCs, like, and you want to get penguins or something that's going to require a whole bunch of maintenance, I don't recommend that at first. You want to get animals that are pretty easy to handle. So nothing that climbs, nothing that's too needy, something basic. So aardvarks is what I chose because the appeal is reasonable and they aren't that expensive, but you can go for whatever you want. Now that we have 2 animals, where are they? If I go back to the animal trading tab and I go to animal storage, okay, you'll see that we have aardvarks here. Now, I also bought us some grizzly bears, okay, but I'm going to sell them back. Now, I bought grizzly bears with the intention of using them for the tutorial. I got a male and a female. But the problem with these grizzly bears, okay, are that they climb. And I had forgotten, because I haven't started a fresh franchise in a while, that you don't start being able to make climb-proof barriers. So they might be too hard for us to contain. So what I'm going to do is select them, and they're in my animal storage. They're in my zoo. I select both of them. They're in green here. And I'm going to go over here and I'm going to sell them, okay? And we're just going to sell them back and get just about what we paid for them, okay? And boom. Now we're back up to 23,000. Now, that's about the number we should be at. So you probably noticed that I lost some money from when I was last talking to you, but that's because I bought bears and decided not to use them. But I also wanted to take this opportunity to say, hey, I could show you how to sell animals. So in this tab, these are our animals. Now, if you select it, you can either send it to another zoo that you have, but right now we only have one, so there's no purpose, or you can sell them back if you don't want them. And notice that you get just about the exact price that you paid for them, okay, if not the exact price. So if you made a mistake, just sell them back, okay? All right, so now they're sitting here and they're waiting for us, but we can't move them to a habitat right now because we haven't built it. So what I'm going to do is just go up to the Zoopedia again. I'm going to look at the aardvarks, and I'm going to remember that whatever habitat we build, it needs to be at least 4,200 square feet for them to be happy. But let's plan on, let's say we have 3 offspring, you know, just in case. Then if we did have 3 babies, which we could have more or less than that when they get pregnant, we need 5,200 feet. So let's plan to have 5,500 feet to be comfortable, okay? That would be 4 babies, all right? So you can adjust here and see how much it's going to take for your size. Remember, we're not going to go above 2 adults, and we might only have 2 children. but we can be safe with 5,500 and adjust accordingly if we have more than that. Okay? So we're going to plan for that. Now, to build a habitat, what we need to do is build barriers. And we go down to the construction buttons at the bottom center of the screen, and we click on barriers. Okay? Now, you can also click on number 3 on the keyboard to get to barriers, or just click the button. Now, we need habitat strength 2 barriers, okay? So many of these are resistance grade 2 or higher, okay? So in all honesty, we just can't use a hedge, but we could use just about all of these other ones to secure our habitat. So I'm going to use a combination of glass, okay, and corrugated. And the reason I'm not using all glass, which I do like to use all glass, is these animals are shy, okay? So we don't want them to be visible from every angle because of that fact. And corrugated is I'm going to use just because it's the cheapest and we want to save money as we're starting out. You can always replace things, okay? Now, I'm going to move this, okay, to about here. And when you select a barrier, we're going to start with the corrugated barrier, okay, which is just going to be a solid wall. It defaults, at least on my settings, to 6.56 feet. I'm looking at feet and not metric. And you are building one post of your barrier. Now, once you left-click this, it will immediately start to build the next segment of your barrier, okay? Now, it goes anywhere I want right now. It's not snapping because I have free reign to place this however I want. Just like the pathing, you can use the plus or minus keys to make this bigger or smaller in terms of its width, okay? We'll talk about adjusting its height in a moment, but I'm going to just build the first segment right here. Now, I'm going to go back, okay? And I'm going to then... I'm on angle snap at 45 degrees, okay? So what I'm going to do is actually change this angle snap, and I'm going to build it to, 30 degrees, okay? And you can do whatever you want. You could do angle snap, or you can push space to not use the angle snap. I'm going to use it just to make a nice uniform habitat, okay? So I'm going to make almost like something that could be considered a rough circle, okay? So you can always just undo, 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 and undo. Now, the great thing about Planet Zoo is when you sell something, you are going to get your full value back for it. So just delete it and fix it. There we go. That was what I did wrong to make it not match up. I was wondering why it didn't meet. And then there, you see we have like a habitat start that is somewhat roundish, okay? And that's kind of what I want to go for. Now, we have this habitat with these corrugated steel walls, but it's not a habitat until you build a habitat gate. So I'm going to build the cheapest gate possible. Okay, and I'm going to put it wherever I want. Now, I'm going to put it on this segment right here, and you'll see it's kind of adjusting my wall to fit it, and that's fine. And I'm going to put it so that it goes right here. I want the path that comes out of the habitat to be on the outside, because that's indicating how the staff will access it, okay? And if I click it, now we have this in place, all right? Now, it's not perfectly uniform like it was before after I built the gate, and I'm okay with that. But if you want to adjust things with more precision, you're going to have to just learn the little kind of wonkiness that is Planet Zoo building and mess with all of your settings and tweak things and tinker until you get it looking just so. I'm going to, for the sake of speed, just kind of build with a little bit more of an organic and free-flowing style. But now we have a gate with staff path that's coming out that people can get to. And what this allows you to do, okay, if I click on the habitat itself, okay, well, let me just push the barriers button. I'm going to push 3 to close barriers. I'm going to left click on this habitat. And now it recognizes this ring with this gate as a habitat. It says habitat 2, okay? And I'm going to rename this, and I'm going to call it, you know, Aardvark home, okay? So this is the Aardvark home, and you can call it whatever you want, or you don't have to give it a name. And what we want to do is go over to the second tab where it says terrain. And we can see that this is actually enormous. So this habitat that we've built is 7,700 square feet of land area. Okay, so it is huge. It's way bigger than we actually need. Now, if you think it's too big, you can adjust it, all right? And that is up to you if you want to do that, but I'm going to just leave it as is, a little larger than we need it. Now, you might say, well, what's wrong with that? The only thing that's wrong, quote unquote, with a big habitat like this is it's harder for your guests to see the animals if they're far away. And so if you have a really, really big habitat, it might be too big for them, and that will say they can't get a good look at the aardvarks. And so in that case, you might say, well, you know what? This is too big. So what I can do then is just click on this, go to the overview screen again, this left panel, and click Edit Barrier, okay? And now I'm going to go down here, okay? And I'm actually going to select this panel. And you can, if you want, just grab, okay, a post and then move it and slide it around to kind of like resize what your habitat will look like, okay? So what if instead I decide to make my habitat pinch in a little bit on these edges, right? And give it a different kind of a shape, like this, okay? Looks almost like a mushroom at this point. Then I can say, okay, good. I can just push escape to get out of this and click on my habitat again. And you see that we've gone down to 6,600, okay? That's pretty good. But maybe you say, I don't like this shape. Well, let's go back here and let's just edit the barrier. And instead of just dragging around, another thing you can do is just select a section and just push delete on it to get rid of it. And just keep pushing delete. And then instead, okay, you can come over here and just make this big segment go all the way over here, flat, and then flatten out the bottom. And instead of making it a circle, make it kind of like a round mound shape, all right? And from here, I can say, okay, well, what do I think about this? Escape, select this, and check the terrain, and 5,500. Okay, that's pretty good. That's pretty close to what we wanted. Now, I'm doing this because I want the habitat not to be too big, because I don't want people to say, hey, I'm standing over here and the aardvark's in the middle and I can barely see it and I don't like the view. All right? So it's better to not oversize your habitat unless you plan on growing it later. Okay? So now we have a habitat that's a pretty reasonable size. Keep in mind, though, that if you put lots of nature or you want to put a water feature or something inside, that's going to eat away at your land area. But these animals don't need water, and we'll see what they need. So I'm not going to worry about that at the moment. But what I do need to worry about now is that I've got my habitat built. I'm going to push escape to get rid of it. I need to have a path that both the guests and the staff can use to access the animals. Okay? So I'm going to go to the pathing button. I'm going to push 9. And we're going to continue building the path. But I'm not going to... I'm just kind of mousing over, and it'll immediately try to pick up the path where it left off. I'm going to make some changes. I do not want the path to be as wide as it is right now. I'm going to shrink this path up to be, instead of 23 feet wide, I'm going to make it just 16 feet wide. Okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, you know what? I would like you, okay, to not angle snap, and I want this path to go around. Now, I'm going to paint this, okay, in such a way that we can move around the habitat, and I'm going to go clockwise around it, and I'm going to use short segments. Now, pathing in this game can be diabolical to get it to work how you want. All I can say is it's an art that you will learn over time and with practice. I am not perfect at it, and I don't pretend to be. I just do my best to kind of get sort of what I'm looking for and run with it, okay? I don't want the path to completely touch the walls of the habitat because we're going to want to put some items in between the guests and the habitat wall, like donation bins, signs about the habitat, maybe a trash can or something. But for now, that is what I'm doing. I'm trying to get it fairly close and tracing around the outside, just kind of dropping it. If you see the path turn red when I move it, that means it's too close. So I just go as close as I can while it's blue and just keep wrapping it around. Again, it does not look perfect, as you can see, but we're doing our best. Okay? Now, this part is going to be wonky, as it always is. Now, you see how this is staff path coming out the gate. That is how it is by default. But I'm just going to cover it up with regular path that I'm building so that, okay, here we go. Everyone can walk on this. Now, you'll see that at the very entrance, okay, we have a little awkward spot, and I'm going to actually just put the path, like that. Now, it looks weird because there's not an edge to it, but that's okay. I'm going to just do it so that people can get a little bit closer and be okay that there is no edge on the path right there. The guests won't walk off that, by the way. They'll just, walk to the edge of it. It doesn't look tremendous, but we can put some flowers on top of that to conceal it. And now we have a place where the guests can walk all the way around this habitat, okay? And the staff can get into this gate to attend to the animals. Now, what I like about this setup that we've got going here is that we have a place to come in the entrance. The staff are over here. They're outside of the angry area of influence, okay? And we have a starting point for the zoo. And what I mean by that is we can build everything off of this central node. So we can build paths going, this way and up to the top to go to different sections. We can also fill in these big green spaces however we want. But this is just a nice little place. The guests will come, they'll walk around, and then they'll just walk back out because we're only building one habitat right now. So now we have a path and we have a habitat. But what don't we have? Well, we don't have a lot of things. We don't have, okay, a way for the guests to even see the animals. So one thing you can do is just click on the habitat and say edit barrier. And while you have a segment selected, okay, you could, all right, put a window on a section. And you do that in this panel over to the right side where you want to make any adjustments to the segment itself, okay? And you can insert a window by clicking glass. We don't have anything else researched that we can do, and this is okay. So now we have a glass cutaway. You could instead replace this with just a glass wall if you want, and that's fine. But remember that these aardvarks are kind of shy, so I'm only going to put in a few segments for them, the guests, to see. Okay, so we're just going to kind of create some viewing areas, and I'm going to just select glass to knock in a window right there. Okay, and I can select glass over here, and I'm just kind of doing like every other segment will have a window. All right, and this will provide the guests with the opportunity to see the aardvarks, but also the aardvarks, if they choose it, some places where they can hide, okay? In fact, I'm actually going to take out this window and give them this corner space for a little hidey hole. And I'm going to put a window over here. Okay, so we give them maybe one little corner where they can go to hide. And then we'll provide some other hiding places for them that are more like bushes and shrubs and things. And if we need to adjust this, if we need to make this a corner that they can hide in as well, we can do that. All right, so now we've got some features that we need to start our little habitat. We've got windows, we've got the walls, and we've got the gate. So before I even let people in the zoo, I want to make sure that this habitat is suitable, okay, for the animals. But first, we need to finish the last staff building, which is a keeper hut. So we need a keeper hut, okay? So you can actually just go to your staff alerts and click on keeper hut, and it will select it for you. But let's look at the negative impact on guests, and remember, whoops, this has negative impact. So what we can do, of course, to avoid that is to just build this, all right, over here in our staff section. Now, generally, I like to put it a little bit closer to the animal, but right now, we're just going to keep it in staff land, and I'm going to actually put it on this side. I can close the heat map because I know that over here, no one's going to be in the influence, and we just rotate the camera so that we can make sure that it's connecting to the path. And look at the heat map one more time. Excellent. So this should bother no one currently. And now we have a keeper hut. We've taken care of all needs for the staff. And what we can do, all right, is say, all right, I'm ready. Click on the animal center, okay, and open animal storage. Or just go to animal trading and go to animal storage. And I'm going to select all of my animals. And I want them, okay, to get moved to this habitat, all right? But, okay, I can't do that yet because I have no staff. So what we need to do is hire some staff. So that's the next step. So before we can get animals moved around, we need people to do that. So let's go ahead and go to the zoo button. I'm going to click the zoo button here, or push 1 on the keyboard, okay? And I'm going to go with these buttons over here on the left. I'm going to go doot down to the staff icon and click this, all right? Now, this is the staff screen, and it shows you how many staff we currently have and each occupation. We have none, okay? Now, if you build a shop, it will automatically hire a vendor for you, but the other jobs we need to fill in, all right? So, here we go. What do we need right now? Well, we need a vet, at least one. We need a mechanic. We need a keeper. We need a caretaker. And we'd probably like a security guard. So let's go ahead and just hire almost one of everything. Not going to hire a vendor right now. And I'm also not going to hire an educator at this moment. We're going to go caretaker. Okay. And then when you click on it, all right, it puts you on this screen, and you can just left click and it will drop them in when the game becomes unpaused. Now, if I push escape, it just goes back to this screen. And I'm going to click keeper and drop it. And then I'm going to go to mechanic and drop it. And I'm going to go to security guard and drop it. And I'm going to go to vet and drop it. All right. So let's see if this is enough staff. I'm going to just push P and unpause it. And you'll see that all of these people are now going to work. Okay. So we'll let them go. And we're going to talk more about staffing in the next video or another video in this series, okay? But for now, we're just going to let these move. And now we can go to the animal trading and go here. And I need, okay, these 2 animals, all right? Beep. And we're going to click send to zoo, okay? But they're already in the zoo, and it's ours. So we're not going to send them to another zoo. We're just sending them to our own zoo. And then what we can do is click on the habitat that we want them to go into. So I'm going to select this habitat and I'm going to click it, and it says delivery scheduled. Okay. And now on this screen, it says they're relocating these animals to Aardvark Home, which is the name of the habitat that we have built. And I'm going to push P and unpause the game. And you'll see that very quickly, okay? I'm going to speed up the game, by the way. And you can push O to change the speed of the game. 1 time, 2 time, 3 time. And now you can see that both the caretaker, by the way, the caretaker is somebody who cleans up trash, all right? And your keeper takes care of your animals, feeds them. These boxes are the aardvarks. I'm going to push P and unpause it, okay? And you can see they're going to throw the aardvarks in here, and boom. We now have 2 aardvarks, okay? In, and I push pause. Now, immediately what happens is that an inspector is going to come 1 year from today, now that we have animals in. And what you can do is click on your aardvark and immediately check its welfare and see if your animal is happy in its current conditions, and we'll start to adjust the habitat to fit what the aardvarks want, okay? Now, we're going to get into adjusting our habitat and maintaining our staff, letting guests in, building guest facilities, and all kinds of other things that this game has to talk about. But we're going to end this first episode here. It's already very long, and there's so much to cover, but I hope that you're getting a basic understanding for how to at least start. And what you want to do is just take these tools and play around with the game. Just experiment, right? You can sell things back. You can shift Z and undo if you make any mistakes. And if you hate it, you can also just delete your franchise and start again, okay? Every day that you log in, you're getting conservation credits, and we're going to start building this up as we go. But now we're going to end, and if you have any questions, please put those in the comments below. Do you want to see more from this series? Would you like me to explain anything else? I'm going to go over more concepts, of course, but if there's anything in particular you want to know, I'd love to help you out. Everyone, thank you so much for watching. Enjoy Planet Zoo. Take care.